Pop squat. Sit down.
Zoomed in.
Look at this.
Alright, you ready? Black denim. I'm telling you, the black denim is sick. Hey guys, welcome to Bibles and Biceps. Hey, we are in our wisdom series. This is our third episode. We went from Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and now we are here in Job.
Road tripping.
Yes, we are road tripping through the wisdom books. And hey, we're excited. This is our Christmas series, and we're so excited to put this out. Hey, if you haven't seen our last two videos, I would say, hey, stop right now and go see those. I think they are very beneficial for your walk. And they were very beneficial for us when we were studying and preparing and just being able to go through this in this season, this 4-week season and journey that we got. So yeah, we're here in Job, and just to get a little bit of backdrop, here's Job, a blameless and righteous man by God, and basically Satan goes up to God and says, hey, the only reason Job is following you, he loves you, he cares for you, he obeys you, is because things are just fine and dandy. Here's Job. He has been blessed beyond measure. He has cattle, he has friends, he has family, everything is going well. God allows for Satan to be able to mess in his life, and Job ends up losing absolutely everything. All of his livestock has been killed or run away. His family has passed away and died, and I believe he gets rashes on his body. I mean, he just goes through an immense amount of pain, immense amount of suffering. And so we're going to talk about the responses Job has had, and we're also going to talk about the responses that God has within that. And so here's Job, and I'm going to hand it over to Devin.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to divide this up into three separate occasions, right? I'm going to start off with Job and just his complaint against God. Then we're going to hop over to God's response, and then Job's response to God in that response. So I'm gonna jump from three separate verses. First in Job 3:1, it says, after this is after some of the first ill happenings have fallen upon Job. He says, after this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth, right? So that's a pretty accurate description of where he's at in some of these beginnings of dark times. And then in chapter 12, verse 4, it says, I am a laughingstock to my friends. I, who called to God, and he answered me, a just and blameless man, am a laughingstock. And so that's, you can tell that it's really starting to weigh pretty heavy on Job, right? Because he feels as though, and you know, we can't speak for Job, right? He feels though as though he's a just and blameless man. You know, he's not going out and partying every weekend. He's not sleeping with his girlfriend. He's not doing this or that or anything. He's abstaining from all this evil in the world, and yet these things are happening to him. You know, and we live in this culture where through the prosperity gospel, you would believe that every time you call on God, you're going to get a new car or a new job that's better, or maybe that cancer in your family that you've been praying so desperately for it to go away isn't going away. You know, you feel like you deserve, you should be getting a little extra than everyone else should, and yet it's not happening. And so we end up in verse 6 of that same chapter 12, it says, the tents of robbers are at peace, and those who provoke God are secure, who bring their God in their hand, right? And so that kind of just resonates with, have you ever just looked around, like I was saying before, you feel as if you're doing everything right, you know, you're going to church, you're praising God, but you're bringing that outside of the church too, you're living for God Monday through Sunday, no breaks, and it seems like everyone else is prospering. Everyone that's not doing those things, you know, we're all surrounded by so many people that, you know, quite frankly, you can just look on social media and see what everyone's up to all the time, and know that it's a little bit different from how you're living your own life, and it's not necessarily the best things. You're looking at these people's lives, and they're doing pretty hot, right? They're getting all A's, and they're getting the girls, and it seems like their life is just a blast, and you're just like, why are they prospering? And I feel so empty right now. I feel like everything that can go wrong is going wrong for me in my life right now.
Yeah, that's so good. I can only think of about 1 billion times I've thought that way. So if you're like us, which I think a lot of us are, then we relate to Job. And here's Job again, just going through so many trials, going through so many things, and his friends come along and like, Job, dude, you've got to be doing something wrong and so many things. And so we finally get to God's response and God's answer in chapter 38. That's a lot of reading to get to God's response. But yeah, so
complaining.
that's a lot of complaining to God. Like, think about how many, for real though, didn't even think about that. Like,
it only gets worse.
Wow,
if we're being
yeah,
honest.
no joke. So, anyway, so basically we get to God's response, and I don't think it's going to be a response that you really think. God, or here's Job, he's basically like cursing his own birth, and he's like, God, why in the world is this happening to me? Why is so much going on? And here's God's response, and I think you might find it as interesting as I found it. God's response says, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. And as I read that, and as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about the universe, and I'm thinking about the complexities and the measurements, even down to the measurements, and that God set the earth and the cornerstone, and that He breathed the earth into existence. And I can only think about not only my own self, but I can think about God and the amazing intricacies of earth and life and existence, all the way even down to death. But my eyes even just look up from my own perspective, and I see God's perspective, that there are a lot more things going on than even I can see, because most of the time I'm more focused on what happens in my own little world than I'm really focused about what's the overall plan and what's really going on. And so maybe you have experienced heartache, maybe you have experienced some pain, but let me just tell you, you might not get an answer for that pain. I don't think Job here got an answer that said, hey, this is the reason this happened. He didn't get the reason for it happening. But what he did get an answer was, I still have everything in control. Even though you might be going through pain, I still hold this earth into existence. I still hold life. You are still here on this earth. And so it takes our eyes from really this ground level. It's about me. It's what I'm going through right now to, wow, I serve a God that is so bigger than what even I can understand. And I'm going to throw a verse out there that has really been pretty big on my heart throughout my entire walk with God, and just not being able to explain things and why God has done things in my life. And it's Isaiah 55, 8, 9. It says, for my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And just to think that I can even think on the same wavelength as God is remarkable, and just how God's thoughts are so much higher and His ways are so much higher. And just, I guess here's Job. He's saying, wow, like, God's got it together, whether my circumstances are what I'm in right now.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And we were talking about this last night a little bit too, as we were studying and seeing that this is God's wisdom. His wisdom is that His perspective is infinitely bigger than human. Yeah. He has it all mapped out, like we talked about in all the other Bibles and Biceps in this series. But like you were talking about, then we get to this point where Job he comes and he confesses and he repents of all his complaining and all these things that he's gone through. And in 42:10 he says, and the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he had prayed for his friends, and the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. So we see that God has left Job in humility. He's left him in the fear of the Lord, and God ends up giving him double. He ends up blessing him double because he was humbled. He was in awe of the Lord. He realized that he was in darkness, and God brought him back to light. And so we just see that all throughout this book, there's like this theme that there's no rational explanation for what happens in life, no rational explanation for disaster or pain, but God's all the time there. He's always with us saying, trust in me. Yeah. So even in that darkness, He's saying, trust in me. Gotcha.
Yeah, so we don't know what's going on. We don't know why things happen the way that they happen, honestly. Job doesn't know, and who knows if we'll ever know until we die. Because like I said last episode, we're all gonna die, you know? But we truly hope that if you're in this kind of a season of just kind of despair and wondering, you know, why aren't things going the way that I would hope that they would go, turn to God. You know, even in the roughest hurricanes, He's there. Even if you have to look really hard, He's there, and He's saying, watch me work through this. Watch me yeah, watch me make you prosper in the midst of this, honestly. And it's not going to happen overnight. You may have been waiting weeks, months, years, but we truly believe that it will happen. You know, and we're praying for everyone. We're praying over these videos that you can come to that realization. So thank you for watching. We're looking forward to next week is last week of this wisdom series. Hope it's been working wonders in your life. We know that all of a sudden we've done, it's really been changing our hearts. So yeah, we'll see you next week.
Biceps. Why not?